And welcome back. With threats of climate change and sea rise growing, the Natural Areas Conservancy and the New York City Parks have collaborated on the city's wetlands management framework. Now, based on extensive field research and building on decades of work by the New York City Parks, the 30-year plan presents the first ever vision for the continued protection, restoration, and care of the city's last remaining wetlands. Joining us to tell more details is the executive director and co-founder of Natural Area Conservancy, Sarah Charlop-Powers. And Sarah, good to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
And so as we were talking today, obviously a lot to really discuss, but give us a little bit about your background on the wetlands.
So I'll say this interview is extra fun for me. I grew up in the Bronx and really love the borough and love its parks. And like many Bronx residents, I wasn't aware of the vast extent of wetland areas that exist within the city. But when I had the opportunity to work on the founding of this organization, our city has about 10,000 acres of wetlands. And the natural areas are distributed across the boroughs. The Bronx has significant wetlands in places like Pelham Bay Park. And the wetlands that we have today are just a small fraction of the historic wetlands that our city had hundreds of years ago. And each acre of wetlands provides really important values in terms of, as you mentioned, protecting us from sea level rise, buffering our coastlines, also helping to mitigate things like extreme heat. So the research that went into this plan was a partnership between the Parks Department and the Natural Areas Conservancy, and is intended to lay out a forward-looking plan to help us make sure that we don't lose the wetlands that we have today, and that we really take care of what we've got, because we know how important these places are now and how increasingly important they will be as we move into the next 100 years.
Yeah. One of the reasons we love the borough of the Bronx is simply because we are, out of all the city, the largest parkland. And then you've got to deal with the parks, and then we also talk about wetlands. How do we get to the place of better preserving our parks and our wetlands?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the Bronx is rich in parks. Places like Pelham Bay Park, largest park in the city, is over 2,000 acres. And a lot of the parks in the Bronx have really unique natural features, in addition to having great playgrounds and ball fields and amenities. Places like Pelham Bay Park and the Bronx River and Van Cortlandt Park, but also smaller wetlands in places like Soundview and Castle Hill. Each of these wetland areas plays a really unique role in terms of helping the communities that they are next to be more resilient. And they also provide really important access for Bronx residents to enjoy nature and to experience the outdoors with family and with friends. The thing about wetlands that's a little tricky is that, unlike other types of parkland, wetlands move. So we know that as sea levels rise, our wetlands are moving inland. And so we have two options of how to address that. One is to restore our wetlands and to help them to retain their footprint. That includes things like adding sediment and planting in areas where we're losing wetlands to make sure that we maintain that footprint and that benefit of those wetlands. The other thing that's really important is thinking about places to allow wetlands to move inland and making sure that we don't build right up to the edge of our wetlands so that we don't have any room for them to migrate as sea level rise. The kinds of recommendations that are in the wetland management framework are really comprehensive in nature. We looked at over 5,000 acres of wetlands with a team of scientists and citizen volunteers, and the information about each unique wetland in the city is sort of rolled up into this vision for how we care for the entire resource at a citywide scale. So we see huge opportunities for the Bronx to benefit from an increased investment in its parks and in this case specifically in its wetland infrastructure.
Yeah. And, when you have this strategic plan now going forward as to dealing with this, what is a part of the strategic plan and how do you see this rolling out?
Sure. So it's interesting. There's a lot of talk right now nationally about infrastructure. And when we think of infrastructure, we frequently think of things like roads and bridges. For those of us who live in New York, we might think of our subway system. But infrastructure is really any piece of um, public land or an amenity that provides a benefit for people. So we view our parks and our wetlands as a piece of infrastructure, and we think that they need the kind of systemic investment that you see in other types of public infrastructure. So the thing about this framework that we're really excited about is twofold. One is that it's based in a lot of information, so we feel really confident that the science and the community engagement behind it is really robust. And the other thing is that it provides an opportunity for the next mayor, the next city council, future leadership in our city to shift away from doing a piecemeal approach to investing, so picking an individual park and investing in that park. So we've laid out um, an approach to selecting the projects that are most important in terms of their vulnerability. And we've also provided some financial tools to allow future administrations to think about the kind of financial and staffing investment really needed to make this work happen.
What do you view as the highest priority at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can answer that question two ways. I think the highest priority from my perspective is that whoever comes into our city's leadership at the sort of mayor, borough president, city council level embrace the idea of wetlands and forests as a priority for the administration. So rather than answering with a specific project, I'll say we have a lot of priority projects in each borough that we've identified. But the thing that I think would be a huge win for New Yorkers would be an embrace of the idea of investing in these places as a really critical form of public amenity that we all benefit from. And that would be a big shift from the kind of great work that's happened historically by groups in the Parks Department and nonprofit partners. But we have never had that kind of full embrace of these places as really critical to the future of our city.
Yeah. And so if people want to get connected to support, find out more information, what are they doing?
Yeah, so I would encourage people to check out our website, which is naturalareasnyc.org. There's also great information about wetlands on the Parks Department's website. And I would encourage people to sign on and learn more. And I'll share that we are also excited in the next couple of weeks to be releasing a new plan for trails in the city. And one of the number one things I would suggest, besides logging on to learn more about our work, would be to make a plan to spend some time outside in a natural area in your neighborhood or in your borough, because I think the incredible beauty of these places is something that I can't really articulate with words, as well as the experience of getting to visit them yourself.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, I'll tell you this, what we have in New York City is really beautiful and definitely needs to be preserved. And hopefully we can find a plan that's going to really preserve for time to come. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
All righty. Well, listen, if you want more information, visit the website, Natural Areas NYC. We also encourage you, follow them on social media at Natural Areas NYC. Please don't go anywhere. We've got more show coming up. Open continues coming up right after this.